In the world of horror games, from Silent Hill to modern day Garten of Banban, there's one name that has withstood the test of time as a key player: Resident Evil. Though Resident Evil may not have the same prestige it used to, it remains today as one of the most recognizable horror game franchises ever, spanning across 29 games and 12 films. Amongst every character we've seen hit the small and big screen, from Claire Redfield to the most recent Lady Dimitrescu, there's one character who remains at the top of everyone's list of most badass Resident Evil women, and in the top 10 list of most badass women in gaming overall, and that's Jill Valentine. But how does her legendary status translate into Bethesda's fourth mainline entry in the Fallout franchise? That's the question we'll be finding out. Can you beat Fallout 4 as Jill Valentine? Going into this challenge, I had no idea what to do other than using weapons similar to her and no armor. Starting with looks, I changed face slightly and got the most Jill haircut I could find. Then it was off to the kitchen to do the pre-game mingling. I stared at the Vault-Tec rep through the window, stalking him like a hungry lioness. I watched Nate read a newspaper like the enthralled wife I am, and then it was finally showtime as I answered the door for the Vault-Tec rep. With every great hero comes a great name, and then I adjusted my stats to be something I think Jill would be. I then played with my potato child, and then we got word bombs were dropping. After limbering up, I left my family in the dust, arriving to the gate in record time. I watched to see if the Vault-Tec guard would actually press the button. He didn't. In the vault, I walked past everyone like the important bitch I am, grabbed my jumpsuit from staff, and then got frozen. Woke up for a bit, watched my husband get wrecked, then took another 50-year nap. After falling out of the pod, I felt refreshed. I grabbed the other wedding ring, because that's what wives do, I guess, and then I was off to find my way out of Vault 111. I killed some roaches, some more roaches, and then picked up the gun that I would end up using for basically the rest of the playthrough. At this point, I realized this playthrough was going to be an alternate version of my Amanda Young video, but I still didn't know what it would evolve to. Making my way to the entrance of the vault, I picked up the Pip-Boy and pressed the hell out of the button before being mesmerized by the door opening animation. Again. It was then time to rejoin the surface and breathe in that nuclear-kissed air. Returning to the surface, I ran my way to Sanctuary Hills and fancily met Codsworth in my old front yard, still meandering about. We had a brief conversation, then I followed him while he killed things. He then pointed me in the direction of Concord, and I set off, passing the gas station on my way so I didn't trigger dog meat. I took out the raiders and then headed inside to clean house. 1, 2, 3, 4, and I was at the door. Sturgis told me about the chance to be Super Jill, and I leaped at the chance, donning the T-45 and jumping off the roof like I just found out there was a 2-for-1 sale on red velvet cake slices. I got bullied by the Deathclaw for a bit, but in the end, everyone lay dead before me. It was here that I decided to go the Minuteman route for this playthrough, as Jill is a helpful person, I think, and they're the helpful non-asshole group. Well, less asshole than the other ones in this game. I listened to Mama Murphy talk her bullshit, and then I followed Preston and his group back to Shithole Hills. I then talked to Preston, who was so enthralling that Jill kept turning her back on him, and he sent me to go clear out 10 Pines Bluff. At this stage in the game, I was really wondering if I was going to make it to the end with just a 10mm pistol. But then I remembered Mitten Squad did that, so I had to mix it up a little bit. I talked to Farmer Dan and then went to deal with his little raider issue. Leveling up along the way, I slapped that point into endurance because the logic was more health equals more staying alive. It didn't actually matter in the end. I ran my way through the Commonwealth to get to Corvega Assembly Plant, where I immediately got sidetracked by my desire for blood. I got laid out by a turret because that didn't have blood for me to spill, and when I reloaded, I realized the most important tool in a Bethesda game: quick saving. But I didn't truly learn this lesson until later. I ran my way back to Corvega and was actually successful in killing the enemies outside this time. Inside, I killed a whole host of enemies and Jared before skedaddling back to Ten Pines to tell Dan the good news. He pledged his loyalty to the Minutemen like the smart man he is, and I went along my way to talk to Preston. He was so pleased someone was finally listening to him for once that he fast-tracked me to the CEO of the Minuteman, which turns out to be just an army of two. He then sent me to do his grunt work and clear out Starlight Drive-In. Why do I still have to do this work if I'm in charge? Either way, it wasn't going to clear itself out, so reluctantly I went. But first, I decided to swing by Diamond City and get the Nick quest out of the way. I put another level into Endurance, again for no reason, and continued on with my trek to the stadium. I wasted some ghouls and ammo along the way, checked the root cellar, and killed Wayne Gorski, who I'm sure would have bought me a beer for it. After a very long ADHD sidetrack journey, I finally made it to Diamond City. I breezed past Piper and straight to the detective agency. I failed to coax Ellie, but because this is a Bethesda game, she just told me anyway, and I headed to the train station to find Nick. I got sidetracked by some scavengers along the way, but eventually made my way to the right location. Inside, it was a tough fight against the Triggermen, and even though I had ammo, I had to funnel them all to the staircase to dispatch, but eventually I walked the lonely road, the only one that I have ever known, and entered the vault. More Triggermen, more shooting, and eventually I made my way to Dino. I did a sneak attack, which may as well have been shooting him with marshmallows, so I bum rushed him and gave him a lead vest. I grabbed the bobblehead, rescued Nick, and we headed for the exit, killing more Triggermen along the way. We were then accosted by Skinny Malone. I failed my speech check because Jill is a fighter, not a talker, and fight we did, eventually laying them all out. We then left the subway tunnel and I met Nick back in Diamond City to tell him about my problems. Eventually, we went to Kellogg's apartment. I watched an advanced robot fail at lockpicking and then was sent to find alternative means to gain entry. I witnessed Piper be a filthy snoop as always, and then for some reason Geneva just left. So I thanked Todd Howard for the good fortune, grabbed the key, jumped on the elevator, and made my way back to Nick. We went inside, I pressed the button to open the secret lair, stole everything, and then we got the clue. Nick whistled for dog meat, he teleported to Diamond City, and it was here I wasted 10 minutes of my life I'm not going to get back. I left without showing dog meat the air in my hand, so when I got to Fort Hagen I then had to go back to Diamond City. After doing it correctly this time, I went back to Fort Hagen and waited for dog meat before we together entered the building. I got lost and died. I got lost and died again. I went to the very bottom of the fort before going back up, getting lost, and dying again. Fourth tries the charm, right? I finally found the elevator, painstakingly killed some synths, got bullied, and died again. At this point, I realized that doing this from level 1 made these challenges way harder than they needed to be. So I started a new rule, declaring all Fallout playthroughs start at level 20. I distributed my new points the wrong way, stood around for like 45 seconds, then finally headed in, killing the 2 synths that were giving me the most trouble. I threw grenades for no reason and confronted Kellogg. I shot him too close with the fat man I didn't show that I picked up, and died again. I then tried that again and was successful, blowing him to smithereens. I looted his person, checked his terminal, and then went back to Nick. It was there that him, Snoop, and I worked out a plan to visit Good Neighbor, so I fast traveled to Park Street Station and made my way there. I watched Hancock kill Finn because I forgot what happened, breezed past the Marilyn Monroe wannabe, and chatted with Dr. Amari. I became a traveler of distant brainstems, found out the secret information, and then was pointed towards the glowing sea to find Virgil for help. Lacing up my boots, I ran my way there, popping a few Rad-X along the way to stave off radiation. Eventually I made it to the cave, made a deal with Budget Hulk, and was off to kill a courser. So I fast traveled to Starlight Drive-In because I'm ADHD and get distracted easily, and died to a mine. I finally remembered to go back and kill the courser, but what I didn't remember to do was restart my recording. So you're just gonna have to trust me that I did it. I went back to Dr. Amari and she pointed me towards the railroad. So I went straight to Old North Church, entered the password, got interrogated, and was let inside. I gave Tom the chip and he gave me the holotape. I then left, never to see these losers again, and took it back to Virgil, who gave me plans to build a teleporter. I then took the plans to Sturgis and built the base platform. I now needed a whole host of rare materials, so I was off the Federal Rations stockpile to both kick names and take ass. Along the way, a fridge caught my attention. I then set to work wasting the Wastelanders while wasting ammo and time. I killed more people inside than I really had to, found the materials that I was looking for, and left for the comm station in the glowing sea. Lucky days, the item I needed was right in the front section, so I snatched it up and headed back to Sanctuary. Sturgis helped me out by pointing at the items while I built them, then played on the console while I gave it power. I then was teleported into the Institute. I rampaged my way to Robo-Sean, was hostile with Real Sean, and met the Institute leaders. I then teleported back to Sanctuary, gave Sturgis the holotape, and then had the bright idea to clear the castle early. So I teleported somewhere in downtown Boston and made my way there, stumbling across unanticipated war. I threw down with some soft shell and hard shell crabs, and then tussled with Mama herself before she fell before me like a dead tree. I then told Preston the good news, met him at the castle, and gave it power for the radios. I then remembered Virgil and went back to the Institute. Grabbed the serum for him because I'm a good person, I think. I took it to him and parted ways. Whether he survives or not, who cares? At this point, I needed to be banished from the Institute, so I teleported back there in search of Father to continue the quest. But I decided that was too fucking long of a journey, so I shot the first scientist I came across, hopped in the elevator, tuned out that motherfucker on the speaker, and made it out of the Institute. That's how it's done. I then told Preston that the Institute were now persona non grata, and we rallied the troops, we as in me, as I needed to get more allies for the Minutemen. I then met Ronnie Shaw at the castle. We laughed and cried in the tunnels of the castle before opening the arsenal and building the artillery. I almost got blown up because I was impatient, and then afterward went to Abernathy Farm to talk to Jake about his daughter's locket. After killing everyone inside, I retrieved the locket, brought it back to him, and then it was back to the castle to defend it from the Institute. Now here, let me tell you, this was very difficult. I didn't have enough ammo, so I relied on pop shots and the NPCs to do most of the work for me. I stole an Institute pistol, killed off the remaining coursers, and then after 15 minutes the Institute ran away scared. I then talked to Preston, who pointed me to Sturgis about getting into the Institute to blow it up. Traveling back to Sanctuary, Sturgis gave me the 411. I headed to CIT ruins and ran to the pipeline before diving inside, soaking in that irradiated water. I fought my way through the sewer system down to the Institute, teleported my homies in, and together we, as in me again, proceeded to clear the area. We went through old robotics, then through the biolab. I watched a gorilla insta-kill a Minuteman, so I got the revenge for him, and then we stumbled out into the belly of the beast. After killing all that remained, I went up to Sean's room, and since he was dying anyway, I decided to help him with a bullet right between the eyes. I lifted the protocol, we headed into advanced robotics, I planted the charge, and was teleported to the entrance. I told my robo-son he could come with so we could make up for lost time, was teleported out of there to a nearby building, blew up the Institute, and I beat Fallout 4 as Jill Valentine.